Okay, let's dive right in. I've covered a lot of conflicts in these explainers, but this one feels different. It's developing so incredibly fast, and for millions of people, it is hitting way too close to home.
Literally yesterday morning, I was in Dubai with my family, and then bam, we hear reports of an explosion at a hotel right across the street from where we were staying. We managed to get out early, our flight took off, everything seemed totally normal, but a few hours into the flight attendant gets on the intercom and announces that the United States and Israel had just launched a full-scale attack on Iran.
By the time we landed, the true scale of what was happening, it was just chaos. We started seeing videos of Dubai's airport being evacuated, smoke filling the air. Drones were being intercepted right over the city, with debris raining down. It was absolutely shocking. And to make matters worse, some of my own family members had a later flight that got canceled. They're still stranded there right now. So let's break down exactly how this all started. What we're seeing is a full-scale military assault on Iran, launched by America and Israel, and it's been codenamed Operation Epic Fury. Bombs are falling all across the country, in major cities like Tehran and Isfahan. And look, this isn't some short, limited strike. U.S. officials have been very, very clear about their objective. They said, quote, "We are going to destroy their missile industry to the ground." But the most shocking part of this operation, the real game changer, was a direct strike aimed at the very heart of the Iranian regime. Yes, it's been confirmed Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in a strike on his compound. Iranian state TV actually confirmed the news themselves. Reports are saying he was in his office at the time and that several of his family members were also killed in the attack. And this just goes to show you how deeply divided Iran really is. On the streets of Tehran, the reaction was split right down the middle. You had some people who were actually out celebrating, while at the same time others were mourning. The state, for its part, has declared a 40-day period of national mourning. Now, Iran's response, it was swift and it was widespread. They launched a massive counterattack called Operation True Promise 4, and they weren't just targeting Israel. They were hitting targets all across the Gulf. You had explosions heard in Dubai. Smoke was seen rising from a U.S. airbase in Doha. And in Bahrain, this incredible video surfaced showing a direct hit on the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet base. Iran's Revolutionary Guard claims it attacked 27 American military bases, but we know for a fact that strikes also hit civilian areas, including hotels and airports. But you know, what's really interesting here is this sort of silver lining in all the chaos. The UAE's air defense system, it turned out to be incredibly effective. According to official sources, out of more than 1,100 missiles fired by Iran, almost every single one was intercepted. A massive number of drones were shot down too. So it turns out most of the damage on the ground was actually from falling debris, not direct hits. Now, this whole conflict might seem like it's happening a world away, but believe me, its consequences are immediate, they're global, and they're especially huge for a country like India. So here's the crucial point. You have over 10 million Indians living and working in these Gulf countries. Right now, as missiles are falling, millions of workers and their families are caught right in the line of fire. India's embassy has already issued advisories telling its citizens to be extremely careful. And if this gets worse, the economic impact is going to be immense. Think about it. India gets over half of its crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz. We're already seeing reports that Iranian forces plan to close that critical waterway, which would basically choke off a huge chunk of India's oil supply. The result is what experts are now calling India's nightmare scenario. We could see fuel prices surge, a massive jump in shipping costs, and rising inflation that would put just immense pressure on the entire economy. The timing of all this has also kicked off a pretty intense political debate in India. Prime Minister Modi had just returned from a state visit to Israel just 2 days before the attack. Now, with Israeli officials saying this attack was planned for weeks, opposition leaders are questioning the timing of that visit, arguing it sends a very wrong message to Iran, which has historically been a friendly nation. So the big question is, how did we get here? Well, this war didn't just happen overnight. The stage for this was set by a crisis that's been building for months. It really all started back in late 2025, when Iran's economy just collapsed, which led to the biggest protests in the country's history. The government's response was brutal. An estimated 30,000 protesters were killed. Then the U.S. started a massive military buildup in the region, and for a second, it really seemed like war could be avoided. Just 1 day before the attack, officials announced a peace deal was, quote, within reach, and then the very next day, the bombs began to fall.
Now, the official justification for this war is to bring peace and democracy to the Iranian people by getting rid of a dictator. But if that script sounds familiar, it's because, well, we've heard it before.
That's the exact kind of language that's being used, and it's almost identical to the rhetoric we heard back in 2003 before the invasion of Iraq, a war that, you'll remember, lasted 2 decades and had devastating costs for ordinary people.
And this really gets to the critical point, doesn't it? We saw this play out in Iraq with Saddam Hussein and in Libya with Gaddafi. Both were, without a doubt, cruel dictators. But when a foreign power came in and removed them, the result wasn't a stable democracy. It was years and years of instability, civil war, and the rise of new terrorist groups that made life even worse for the people on the ground.
And that leaves us with the most critical question of all. The biggest fear right now is that Iran could become another failed state. So, will this intervention actually help the people of Iran, or does it risk unleashing decades of even greater chaos? Will history just repeat itself?